Thanks for joining me today, guys. Talking about our bamboo back and belly hybrid bow build along that we are involved in now. I wanted to take a quick minute and talk a little bit about the components, at least the limb components of what we are dealing with to make this construction possible. So, as mentioned in the title of the build, we have a bamboo back and we have a bamboo belly. The bamboo belly is split into two pieces in this particular build. The backing strip is handled just as has been described in previous builds, and I have a tutorial on preparing a bamboo back, and I'm going to put a card right here for you guys to reference. The core piece is red oak. I used red oak in this instance because the lamb itself, or the wood for that lamb, then would be of a pretty light mass, and so we can keep the limbs lighter through construction using red oak versus some other materials that may weigh more, like hickory or ipe or something like that, which would actually slow down our limbs. That particular piece, we constructed it in the prior video. It is 1.5 inches wide at the fades here and tapers out to 5/8 inch nocks. You might notice too on my backing that I've got the nodes. They are situated such that the nodes are out here on the fades versus being right here on the grip like our last build. In this instance, we are okay because we're deep within the fade of this bow limb right here. We are 0.16 inches thick right here at the grip and into the fades. We taper that evenly to a 0.01 inches thick out at the tips, and that gives us a nice taper to work with as we begin bending these limbs. And I do that center core so that we don't have to worry too awful much about the tapering on our bamboo. But truthfully, what that does is we have a tillered back, we will have a tillered belly because we're going to prepare the belly lamb in the exact same fashion that we produce the back, and then we will have a tapered center core, which again only aids in the tillering process. So we're going to have an even bend on this right out of the gate, which is important because we lose a lot of opportunity to tiller, as I had mentioned in the introduction to this build. Speaking specifically about the belly, so let's talk about the construction of the belly lamb. You will notice on this particular build, and I'm giving you a little bit of a preview of what we are constructing here, but there are several nodes across the belly of this particular slat, in addition to this one over here. And what I have done here is, when you purchase lots of bamboo, not all of them are going to be well-spaced nodes similar to what's suitable for the back of a bow, but you will get some that are really closely spaced, which can be a little bit of a challenge if you're trying to tiller it from the back of a bow, but they lend themselves nicely to bellies. And so what we've done here is use this on our belly lamb. This is going to be ground down smooth by the time this is all said and done. And so having multiple nodes is of no consequence in the final build here. So if anything, you can find some bamboo that you have that may be on the marginal side with regard to spacing on nodes, and put those aside for a belly lamb in a bamboo back and belly build. So there's an outlet for those pieces. This piece, or the bamboo belly pieces, are going to be tempered. It helps with the compression, and it's going to have the same effect as like heat treating the belly of any wooden bow. So what we're going to do is temper the glue line side of this piece of bamboo and get that benefit internally within the limb structure. It also gives us the opportunity to then address the exterior piece of this lamb or limb or whatever you want to, however you want to describe this, with more tempering on the external surfaces. So that's going to help us with our tillering process, but we don't want to thoroughly temper this belly piece on its outer surface and rob ourselves of the opportunity to shape this limb through temper. And why we would want to make this lamb just a slight bit thicker, two reasons. One, this is where the compression occurs, and that's where you want a little bit thicker piece. Remember that compression resides in a much larger percentage of the thickness of a limb than does compression. Compression resides in the very external percentages of these of the limb thickness, but not compression. Compression takes up a little more of that limb percentage, and as such, we can leave the belly piece of bamboo just a little bit thicker. But we want to do it for another reason, and that is when we temper it, it actually takes on a little bit of a convex nature along its length, and I will show you how to deal with that later on in the video. So I've had these tempering over the fire pit for, I don't know, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. When I take them off the heat, I rush them into the garage and put them in this caul right here. And the idea is to get the fade end of the slat to bend with what's going to be the fade. So what I have found in the past is it is very difficult to get the thickest piece of your bamboo to actually conform to the shape of your fade. So this is the second slat in the caul. You will see that my first slat have that bend in there, almost like a recurve essentially. And the idea here is to help it through the fade of the riser here. So clamp pressure alone is just not enough here, and what I have done in the past is thinned out this section enough such that it would bend easily through the fade, you know, without contemplating the fact that it would bend easily out of the fade in the finished bow. And I had some hinges occurring right at the end of the fade, and that's a heartbreaker when you go through all the effort to get these bows put together to just hinge right out of your fade. And so this is a pretty important step to induce some of that bend in advance and be able to lay it up against your riser piece there. We have all of our parts lined up here on the bench. Well, at least the limb pieces anyhow. We have the red oak core, which has been tapered to its tips. We've got the bamboo backing strip, which is a singular piece of raw bamboo. And then we've got the two belly strips of bamboo, which have been tempered on the glue side. Take a second and just kind of talk about, I alluded to it in an earlier segment, that we're going to have to re-grind these lambs after we temper them because they tend to take on a convex shape. So I'm just going to get down here and give you a view of what I'm talking about. We are not quite flat across the surface of this. All right, so I think actually if I zoom in a little bit, we'll be able to see this. Yeah, you see there? There's a slight crown there, and that is going to wreak havoc with our glue line. Everything else is flat, but this has that crown to it on the glue line surface. And so we need to go back and readdress this surface to get it flat again. So when we left these just a little bit thicker, this was a little bit of the reason why. And I think that's when I talked about the fact that we were going to have to go back and regrind these a little bit. Now, mind you, we are going to have a difficult time looking at the tiller on these. And so, you know, we got to be very careful about how we go about flattening that surface out. All right, I am going to do it on the sander, but just very slowly, and make sure that I can see my progress through here, and I will be able to check it, you know, just through through floor tiller, but you know, we just got to be real careful when we go back and take that down. So here these are. We are basically ready for glue up. I'm just going to go through and flatten that, readdress those surfaces one last time to get them flattened out. All right, and then we'll move on to the riser construction from there.